Interviewing everyone from Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page to NFL superstar Tom Brady, Chuck Klosterman's span of work is varied, to say the least. Chuck is a best-selling author of 8 nonfiction books and 2 novels. He's also written for publications like the New York Times and GQ.
His latest work, Chuck Klosterman 10, a highly specific, defiantly incomplete history of the early 21st century, is a collection of columns and articles published over the past decade. Chuck Klosterman, good morning. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You cover a lot of ground in here. One of the early essays that you have in this book is about zombies that you were commissioned to write by the New York Times, I think. And you say in it a lot of modern life is exactly like slaughtering zombies.
Yeah, well, the conceit about that was, you know, everybody now seems to have an understanding of if there is a zombie apocalypse, how to deal with it. It's widely understood. You just you take a shotgun or some kind of axe and you just keep kind of knocking them down as they come at you over and over again. And as I was writing this, I was like, that's sort of like dealing with email. And then it's just,
I love that reference.
Well, because you'll never finish, right? There'll never be a point where there'll be no more emails to look at or no more things to sort of check on. So you live your life sort of in a technology-based world like you're destroying zombies. You're just in a corner trying to survive by, annihilating them one by one.
It feels like the zombies actually are more deadly than those emails might be, maybe. I'm not certain. In that, actually, in the intro to that, you also wrote about getting the piece and sort of that, had you said you were a big fan of the work, they would have given it to you. Had you said, as you did, that you weren't, they gave it to you. And I thought that in all these intros to your stories, you really did a great job of sort of exploring something about each one. Did you learn a lot about your stories and looking back to put this together?
Well, I suppose a little bit. I mean, you can only learn so much about work you did yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't read something you wrote and then be surprised by it.
Yeah.
But what I just try to do is when I republish these pieces, because they have run elsewhere, there are people who've seen them before, but you know, everything is like the media is such a constructed reality that I always think it's interesting if you can tell people just a little bit of how it actually is, like how these things actually come into being, right, and what the experience of meeting these people is actually like, because the stories sometimes don't reflect that.
Yeah.
They sort of get changed by the way, by like the manufacturing process of magazines or the internet or whatever. Yeah.
There's a number of great music stories in the book, and I was surprised to see that you were a big fan of Kiss. You say the social footprint they leave is deeper than their catalog.
Yeah, I mean, Kiss is my favorite band to think about.
Okay, not to listen to?
Well, no, the Beatles are my favorite band to listen to, but Kiss is my favorite band to think about. I think that they are the most interesting band. In a way, it's almost like you can understand the entire concept and sort of the unreality of rock music through the trajectory of their career. And, you know, I was into Kiss when I was young, and I never really stopped. I think what's really interesting about being into Kiss is you can have almost an adversarial relationship with the band. Like, it's not like Bruce Springsteen,
right,
where you think to yourself, well, boy, if, you know, when he's not on tour, he's probably working in a car wash in New Jersey, you know, this lionization. With Kiss, you can make fun of them while you like them. Yeah.
You also had a lot of sports stories in here. Tom Brady and Kobe Bryant couldn't have been 2 more different interviews for you either.
I mean, in practice, absolutely. I mean, Kobe Bryant, I went assuming it was going to be a real difficult thing, and he wanted to talk about his life in a way that was so lucid and upfront. I mean, I've never had an interview with a sports athlete like that.
In reading it, you hear more than you normally would.
And it just immediately happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I spent a month with him. Like, it was like 80 minutes, and he told me more in like 80 minutes than most people I have talked to for 2 years. But Tom Brady was the complete opposite. The whole reason I was doing that interview, I thought, was to ask him these questions about Deflategate, and that the whole thing was set up so that he would sort of address these issues that he had never really addressed before. But that wasn't the case at all. I mean, maybe somebody said he was going to do that, but he didn't know that.
How do you confront that situation when you're? I mean, we've all sort of been in it. I'm curious how you confront that when somebody puts up a wall like that.
Well, the thing is when I realized that this just wasn't going to happen, and that the central thing that we were supposed to be discussing was not going to be part of the conversation at all. For a while, I thought, well, maybe this story will just be eliminated. Maybe it'll just evaporate. But it was for GQ's Man of the Year issue, and Tom Brady was the Man of the Year. So this story was gonna run even if he had never called me at all. So then I said, well, how about this? I'll write an essay about Tom Brady, and then in the middle, I will include the Q&A section of when I ask him these questions.
Yeah.
He refuses to answer. But I mean, certainly there is something you learn from someone when they say nothing. I mean, the way that they react to questions, even if they're not giving you information, does maybe give you more insight into what their personality is really like, as opposed to if they had a constructed answer that they gave you that is really no different than, you know, public relations.
Yeah. Chuck, we appreciate the time. Thank you. Some great stuff, great work, even if you've seen it before.
Thank you.